Spring's right around the corner. And if you remember back when we had that microburst a few Aprils ago, it came completely out of the blue. And I mean that literally and figuratively. 1 minute the sky is blue and calm. The next thing you know, it opens up, all hell breaks loose. Again, literally and figuratively. Nobody wants storm damage. But if it happens, you want a team you can trust. Listeners of the DAP in the Hood podcast receive $500 off a roof replacement when you use promo code DAP. Here's how to apply it. Visit bluecollarroofingsc.com. Navigate to the online instant estimator. Enter DAP under project details before submitting. If you'd rather speak to someone directly, call the office at 803-670-0343 and mention promo code DAP. And let them know that you heard about Blue Collar Roofing through the DAP in the Hood podcast. Use promo code DAP and save $500 of your roof replacement. Now let's get to the show. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Christine Sparks.
And where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida, but I spent half of my time growing up sent back to York County, specifically between York and Clover, because my dad was military.
Okay. How would you describe your personal connection to Brattonsville?
So my personal connection, I am actually direct descendant of Robert Bratton. He is my sixth great-grandfather. He was actually the brother of Colonel William Bratton, and he, along with their other siblings, settled here originally in the early 1760s. Past that, his son-in-law, my fifth great-grandfather, William Robinson, along with several other family members, actually fought here as well during the Revolutionary War at the Battle of Huck's Defeat and several other battles. So, but that's my direct connection.
Thank you for sharing that. Miss Margaret, please state your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Margaret Crawford Parson-Willins.
Thank you. Now, where were you born and raised for the people that don't know?
I was born and raised in rural Rock Hill, about 3 or 4 miles from historic Brattonsville.
Okay, and how would you describe your connection to this place?
Historic Brattonsville was the home of my ancestors.
Absolutely. Okay, Mr. Wali, can you state your name for the record?
Willie James, Cathcart, known as Brother Wali.
And where were you born and raised?
I was actually born in Chester because my mom was from Chester, but we were living in Rock Hill. So I was raised in Rock Hill, South Carolina, rural Rock Hill on the farm.
Okay. And what is your personal connection to Brattonsville?
Well, I'm connected through my father, Ira Cathcart, whose mother, Fanny Crawford, was born there, which was my grandmother was born here in 1868. Her mother name was Lila. She got married to a Crawford in 1865 when the slaves were freed. She's 23 years old here at Brattonville, enslaved at Brattonsville with 2 children, Dan and Matilda. She continued to live here after she got married right away after she was free for 9 years and then moved to York, South Carolina, where she met and married my grandfather, Lawson Cathcart. And they sharecropped or lived in the area and bought land in 1923. So that's where I am on the family farm.
Yes, sir. Miss Margaret, what are your earliest memories of growing up in Rock Hill?
My earliest memories, cotton. My father, the Crawfords purchased land. My great-great-grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather purchased land that was passed down from generation to generation. And growing up, my parents raised almost everything. The meats, the vegetables. We very seldom had to purchase anything from the grocery store except for maybe rice, some type of bread, because we made our own biscuits. We grew wheat to make our flour. We grew corn to make our meal. We had hogs, cows, chickens, guineas, turkeys. You name it, we had it.
Beautiful. That's self-sustainability right there.
That's right.
me and Brother Wali got some plans to try to get some people, get the community back towards that goal, that direction. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What are your early memories being on Brattonsville, Mr. Wali?
My earliest memory of Brattonsville was, I guess, when I was a child. Well, I heard that my grandmother was still living. She died when I was about 4 years old. I do remember her. And, of course, the story was that she was born there, a brother. So we knew early on that our grandmother was from Brattonsville. I didn't know much about my great-grandmother. I got to find out more about Lila when I got involved here in Brattonsville. But my earliest memories, like Margaret, living out on the farm. We raised everything, of course, this being cotton country. We were cotton farmers and, of course, growing corn and everything. We didn't grow wheat, Margaret. That was one thing we didn't grow. But everything else was grown and raised on the farm. We did very little shopping at the store.
Absolutely. Now, Ms. Sparks, before discovering your family's connection, what did Brattonsville mean to you?
So I've always been a lover of history. So anytime that I travel somewhere, I like to take in the different historic properties or sites. And to be honest, I didn't even know Brattonsville was right here in York County's backyard until not too long ago. And so when I came out, I was just like, oh, wow, this is a really neat place. It offers a unique perspective. And I really liked the way that they were preserving the history of the property as well as the people who lived on the site from both perspectives, from the enslaved and the enslavers. And so I just thought it was a really unique take on it.
Now, with that being said, when did the connection to Brattonsville become personal to you?
So like I said, I love history. I love family, genealogy. Being a military kid, I grew up outside of where our homestead was, essentially. So I always found myself longing for that familial connection to my past. And so I was researching, and July 2023, actually, I stumbled upon a record that connected me back to the Brattons. And I remember I was in a research center, and I said, what Brattons are these? Because growing up, like I said, partially in York County, you know the Bratton name, and you know that basically everybody's related to the Brattons. It's kind of the adage, right? Right. Cousins, distant. And so I asked, I said, well, what are these like the Brattons, like Brattonsville? And they're like, yeah, like you're directly related. And I was like, what? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's still recent. We're in about 3 years this summer that I made that connection, but that's how that story unfolded.
So you found that out. Mm-hmm. How was the history of your family explained to you?
Nobody knew,
right.
At least not current generation. So what's interesting about this is the first time I ever came out or learned of Brattonsville, again, because I lived I lived outside of the area, was September of 2018. My grandfather, who was married to my Robinson grandmother, where we're descended from the Brattons from, he actually, I was up visiting. I was looking for something to do with my two boys. Again, I love taking in the historic sites. So he said, well, have you ever been to Brattonsville? And I said, no. So we drove out here, and he took me around the property, and he told me about his story. But past that, I don't even know if anybody even knew of the connection to Brattonsville. I don't, on my mom's side, even though we've been in this area, obviously now I know for over 200 years, past my great-grandparents, there were not stories told about our family. So I just don't know if they knew or if they just, as some older generations do, decided to conceal, and I may never know.
Thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. Ms. Margaret, how was your family's history explained to you?
It wasn't. Not my connection to Brattonsville.
It wasn't?
I had no idea that I was a descendant when we were small, my mom used to bring us past here. It was all grown up, and she would bring us past here, and we would stop in front of Colonel Bratton's house. My mom and her family lived in that house when she was a teenager. So we stopped and we would plow through the grass, and I was afraid of snakes, and she would take us inside of that house. It was all grown up. I still didn't know that I was connected to Brattonsville, and I'm not connected through my mom.
Right.
So she had no idea, you know. I only found out when Wali talked me into coming out here to volunteer, and we started doing research, and that's how I found out.
Mr. Cathcart, now your situation is a little different. How was your family's history explained to you?
Oh, yes, as you first stated, my situation was definitely different. I knew that my grandmother and her brother, of course, we have him on the descendants list here from Brattonville. His name was Dan. That was my grandmother's oldest brother, Dan Bratton. And it was well known that he was from here. Now, the Bratton plantation, this place was grown up before they restored it. So I was quite familiar with it, walking by it many, many times, knowing that Grandma Fanny was born there. Her brother Dan, she had a sister named Matilda. They were both born there and fathered by the Bratton men. Now, my Uncle Dan, my great uncle, my grandfather's brother, was extremely light-skinned because his father was one of the Bratton men, Dr. Bratton. He told my mom that the doctor was his father. So you just could look at his complexion, having a mulatto mother and a white father. He could have passed if he had so desired. But I knew him, I guess, for 14 years of my life, and going to visit him at home and him coming to visit us. That was Uncle Dan, Grandma Fanny's brother. His name was Dan Bratton. So we knew he was born at Brattonsville. So my brothers and I, our friends, would walk by this place. It was before they stored it, of course, it was a wilderness, but you could see the homestead house and the they call it the original slave house, the one that wasn't destroyed. It was visible. We thought it was spooky, and when we were more afraid to walk by here at night, but I was well aware of it, having that grandmother, her brother Dan, and my grandfather Lawson, who was actually born into slavery in 1857. So I spent 14 years of my life with him, listening to stories about the Civil War firsthand, because he was 8 years old and had very clear memory of the proclamation when slavery was free. He told us that it was very chaotic. No one knew what they were going to do next. So his memory was very clear as an 8-year-old. He even told us stories about the Union soldiers who were, I guess you call them mopping up. They had won the war. You remember, to his recollection, a group of Union soldiers put some Confederate bodies in a church and set the church afire. What? That was one of the things he told us. But due to the fact that we as African Americans mostly didn't want to talk about the subject of slavery, and he lived with my aunt, his daughter, would not permit him to talk to us about slavery in her presence. We had to get him out of her presence, and then he would talk to him, because children by nature were inquisitive, and he told us a lot that he remembered about slavery. So I was very aware of it, of Brattonsville, and my connection, knowing that my grandmother was born here. But a lot of the other information I didn't get until I came to Brattonsville, and we started to participate in by the sweat of our brow. And then I got more documentations on that.
Well, thank you for explaining all of that. To maybe dig in just a little deeper, like, what are the most memorable stories you were told about the connection? Do you have one that wasn't included in what you just said that kind of pops up?
Well, as I said, that on my father's side in particular, my aunts, they were very closed-mouthed about it.
Right.
But I'm sure they had more information. But my mom was from Chester, married into the family.
Mm-hmm.
It was her who would sit and talk to my grandfather, Lawson, my grandmother, Fanny, and even Uncle Dan. This is how she got to find out from him that his father was one of the Bratton men, the doctor. He just said the doctor was my father. But there were two doctors in that age category, Dr. James Rufus Bratton and Dr. John Simpson Bratton. I just kind of assumed it was John Simpson Bratton, but when I got a copy of his death certificate, it was John Simpson that's on his death certificate as his father. He was kind of bitter about that because you know what that meant, because it was, the slave holders would take advantage of the enslaved women. And my grandmother was one of those women. She had 2 children for the Bratton men before she married Larkin Crawford, who is my grandmother's father.
Thank you. I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. Miss Margaret, what do you remember most about your great-grandmother?
I don't remember a lot about what she said because I was so small. I was so young, I really didn't pay a lot of attention. But I remember her to be a very small lady. She was very feisty. She loved to hug. She was very affectionate. And she was stubborn. I can remember hearing either her children or grandchildren, I don't remember who they were, telling her how stubborn she was because she didn't allow it. She was very independent. And she was about to be to the point where she needed someone to take care of her, and she refused. Until the last 5 years of her life, she lived to be 114. So she was independent until the last 5 years of her life.
Wow.
According to my mom. But yes, I remember her, but I don't remember a lot of her stories.
Let me ask you this. How does knowing someone born enslaved shape your understanding of the history of it all?
I understand that that our history was not told as it should have been.
Right.
I understand that our people were resilient. They were strong people. If they hadn't been, I don't think we would be where we are today.
I agree.
They suffered a lot so that we could have the lives that we have today.
Yes, ma'am. And we can't take that for granted.
We can't take that for granted.
I'm talking about people in the community, in the local area, and really all across the globe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So now, Christine, what emotions surfaced when you first learned the truth?
Well, it was kind of a mixture for me. It was definitely a whole lot of denial and shame, I guess is the best way to describe it. I guess you could say you're a little naive too if you think that, or I was, just to think that my family being in the South for as long as we have, that there wasn't going to be some sort of history that I wasn't exactly excited about. So I would say it was definitely denial when I really found out that, oh, it's on paper, it's here. I mean, you can't not be affiliated with this area and family and not have some sort of history of being or descendant from enslavers, right? And then the shame associated with that was definitely the second emotion.
So you found out
Why did you keep it a secret so long?
So it kind of goes back to that whole the shame aspect of it. So like I said, I was really pretty naive and maybe just irresponsible in my thinking. But there again, when you're young, you don't really, you know, you don't think about things unless they start to affect you. And I think all of us kind of experience some complacency like that, right?
Right.
And so I like I said, I was raised in Orlando, very culturally diverse areas. I mean, it is an international melting pot. So, and the way my family always raised me and my grandparents, the general rule of thumb was that you always, you choose your friends and the people who surround you based on their character, how they treat others, their heart, you know, things like that. And so then when I found this information out and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, okay, are my friends going to walk out on me when they find out this part of my history now? So I just, that was one aspect why I didn't want to come forward. The second aspect was what the Descendants of Brattonsville group does is unprecedented. You know, you hear so many news stories about race relations, and then you break it down further into race relations from descendants of plantations where it's evident that there is a DNA connection, and so you can 100% paint the picture that, yes, these enslavers were taking advantage of their position. And you see these groups, and they're meeting, or they're formed, but they're not meeting together as descendants of enslaved and enslavers. And so when I found out about Brattonsville doing that, I was, quite honestly, I was like, there's no way. There's no way. That's not happening. You know, so it took me a while to get to that point to where I was like, okay, it is legitimately happening, and they are doing what they're saying. So, but like I said, it took me a while. It took me about a year before I decided to come forward.
Okay, and what gave you the courage?
So Miss Margaret's already laughing at me, and so is Brother Wali over there, because they know this
it's
story.
Contagious, so
yeah. So I kind of, I mean, we could say I stalked the group, you know, but I made sure to come out to events where they were present. And because I wanted to see them. I wanted to see the cohesiveness that was being talked about.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to do a little recon.
Right. And so it's so funny because I'll never forget it. It was Juneteenth, and the Descendants panel was out on the lawn there, and I came up, and I just came up with a crowd, me and my two boys, and I just listened to them speak. It was just both black and white descendants, and you know, they were sharing their stories and sharing their experiences, and there was raw, real emotion attached to it, and it wasn't scripted. And I just sat there, and I talked to Miss Margaret and and then Miss Nancy, who's another descendant on the Bratton side, and
It's okay.
You know, and my boys talked to Brother Wali, and they connected, and it immediately felt safe and welcoming. And so Miss Sarah was there too, Sarah Lowry, and she is my strong silent friend. That's how I describe
Shout out to her.
Right.
Hello.
She definitely, she's there, and but she's like, I'll let you talk.
Right.
But and they told me, it basically showed me it was okay. And so I came around and I said, well, this is all wonderful, and I'm really excited to be here, and it's a pleasure to meet you. And oh, by the way, I'm related.
So y'all two are related, right?
So we are not, none of us at this table have DNA connected as far as, or me with Miss Margaret or Brother Wali. But within the group, we have established DNA connections through Ancestry between our black and white descendants.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay.
But we are family. Let's be clear about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's part of where I stand. I mean, this is all about y'all and y'all's story, but I just want to put this in there, that what y'all are doing and what's going on is powerful. Y'all have accepted the past, because no one can do anything about the past, right?
Right.
Y'all have acknowledged that in your family. So y'all see each other and hang out, right? Y'all love each other.
Oh, yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm hoping y'all can learn something from this. Whew. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brother Wali.
Go ahead, Brother Wali.
I kind of wanted to elaborate a little bit on what it meant to grow up with two people in my family who were actually enslaved. My Uncle Dan was 4 years old when in 1865 my grandfather Lawson was 8. And so I got to know both of those men. Uncle Dan died in 1950. My grandfather Lawson died in 52. I'm 14 to 14 years old and actually get to talk to those people. One thing I would like to say about growing up with my grandfather Lawson, there is a dialect that was spoken by people who were from that generation, and it reminds me of a language. When you're in their presence, you will understand these words. If he wanted you to, my grandfather wanted you to move, he would say, take care, that we know what that meant. And words like aguine, you probably see it in the movie. You say, are you going, I'm aguine. You probably saw movies on slavery. Those were terms that were used, and used the word wench. Wench is a young girl was called wench. And mammy, where's your mammy? That's your mother, right? So those words, those language were going with my grandfather Lawson. We understood the dialect. And when he said those words, we know what they meant. And over yonder, aguine, yesterday is yesterday.
Yes, sir.
I did it yesterday. So there was this language, this dialect that was spoken on the plantation. So we grew up with him, listening to that and understanding that, and I think that's priceless to me. Those years that I got to spend with him, because at that time, when we were growing up, they didn't warehouse your elder. They didn't put them in homes. They stayed there on the farm with you, although they were not able to work, but they would spend time with the children. So he was like a babysitter in a way. Here we were walking around the farm, and he's constantly teaching about life and what not to touch. Don't touch that spider with the red dot on its back. That's a black widow. So you were a child with him learning how to navigate what dogs and what animals and what insect was poison. So you would learn it. So to me, it's priceless. That's those 14 years of my life spent with him. And I really, when it was time for him to pass on, it was really traumatic to me. I agonized over that for days and weeks. Before he passed, thinking that I would have to live without him. It wasn't easy. So we call him Pap. So he was right with him. We would walk for miles with him to go to his daughter's house. Was out on 5 miles. He would still walk slowly, but my brother and I spent so much time with him. I think back, as I look back, as priceless. I wouldn't give anything. I'm so happy that I was able to do that. It had effect on me, on my life.
Thank you for sharing that. And part of your life, you played baseball. Now, what did baseball represent to you as a young man back in the 1950s?
Well, during my childhood, baseball was the sport. Football and basketball were minor sports at that time. Not so now, but I remember going to the Rosenwald School, which Margaret attended the same school. And we had a baseball team, but no boys basketball team, girls basketball. But I didn't even know boys played basketball. So I went to high school in Rock Hill. But baseball was huge. It was the game. You had a church team or community team in every community. And this is before Jackie Robinson. We didn't even know about Major League Baseball to speak of. It was the local team that we looked up and revered, and we wanted to be like the players who were playing on there. And of course, I started to play baseball earlier. And when Jackie Robinson was signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 47, oh, that was another turning point. It was huge. It wasn't just sports. It was a social change. There were two people that I think that meant so much to basketball. There were athletes, Joe Louis, and then comes Jackie Robinson. Every black person you knew became Dodger fans. And I guess that started my desire to want to be a professional baseball player and play with the Brooklyn Dodgers because of Jackie Robinson. But being in the rural South down here, knowing our segregation, at the time you were not going to get the opportunity because of that. And that's why I chose to go to New Jersey. I had a cousin that lived in Plainfield, New Jersey, would come down and play baseball with my brother, and I lived with his grandfather and grandmother. And at the end of the season, to go back home, had to go to school. But he and I made a pact that we were going to play with the Brooklyn Dodgers when I got out of high school. So I graduated from high school, and I moved to New Jersey and lived with him and played semi-pro ball around until I got an opportunity to play with the Joe Black National League All-Star. Joe Black being the first black pitcher to ever win a World Series game, was from Plainfield, New Jersey. So when he retired, he came back to Plainfield and decided to put together a team. So he signed my cousin and I, Linwood, to play with his Joe Black National League All-Star. So I played a couple of years with that, but I enjoyed that too, because the competition was very good, and the players that I got to play with were very professional.
Thank you. I was going to ask how you got to high school, but we'll say that for another day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a story in itself.
Yes, sir. Now, back to playing baseball. How did coming up and playing during segregation shape your character, would you say?
Well, when we played, of course we played, blacks played black. We didn't play or against or with white. Well, you didn't hardly do anything with whites back in those days because, your lunch counters and all that, going to the movies was segregated. And my days of playing baseball before leaving here was playing on the local team, the New Zion team, because we didn't have a high school baseball team at Emmett Scott. So we was against black players, with black players. We didn't play white teams.
Understood. Now, what's one thing that Joe Black taught you that sticks with you to this day that you remember?
Well, the one thing that stands out to me that Joe Black, I guess I wouldn't say still him, I had it, is work ethics. Mm-hmm. Work ethics is something that applies to almost anything you do. If you want to succeed or be good at anything, it's how you apply yourself. And if you don't mind working at it, and baseball is one of those things that if you want to be good at it, because physical training, you cannot be lazy. And as a pitcher, that is even more so. You got to get up early in the morning and run and run and run. And because your legs are the most important things to you. If you're a pitcher and your legs give out on you in the seventh inning, back in those days you went 9 innings. And so it's a preparation. It means so much. And you have to work hard.
Absolutely. Mr. Cathcart, what does it mean to inherit a history that you did not personally choose? And this is a question for the whole panel.
A history, you mean a history of segregation or?
Slavery. Being like a descendant of a slave. Like you had no control over that. Like, how does that make you feel? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think it makes you feel like, although you didn't have personality, you do have a responsibility. Yeah. If you're given something, then instead of complaining about it, try to make the best of it, be the best out of a bad situation. Although though you were, I had to put up with some indignities around here, but I had to have resolve. And it just made me more determined. I had some issues that I had to put up when I got out of high school, riding on the back of the bus or being told that you didn't qualify for a job because of your complexion or your color. No. Or being called in the office and talked about, called into the supervisor's office in my first job and being told that there were complaints about me, not about my work. He said about your attitude. My attitude means that that I didn't accept certain things. I may have to do it, but I didn't have to like it. Because if I didn't laugh and somebody told jokes about black girls or something, if that was my attitude, and it was what I felt, and I thought I had to stand up for that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Miss Margaret.
Inheriting a history that I did not choose. Number one, it was burdensome to me. To think back at what our ancestors went through. And at the time that I grew up in a segregated society, I could imagine what we were going through. I could imagine that our ancestors went through much worse. So that's why it was burdensome. But it also gave me some incentives. Thinking back on my ancestors was an incentive for me when I participated in the civil rights movement during the 1960s. And then I realized that those people, particularly white people who came in, who were in our corner, who marched with us, they were treated much, much worse than we were. And I can give you one instance. Most of my civil rights activities took place in Orangeburg, South Carolina. I was a student at South Carolina State University.
Yes, ma'am.
College at that time. And on one occasion, when we were demonstrating downtown, there were two young white boys that marched with us, and they were pulled from among us, and they were beat to a pulp. There was nothing we could do about it, nothing at all. So that part was burdensome, but yet I'm honored. I'm honored to inherit that history, and I'm glad that I am able to be a voice for my ancestors, to make sure that their voices are heard.
Thank you. Christine?
So for me, I guess the biggest thing has been, you can't change the past. You can't change the decisions of your ancestors. But what you can do is you can embrace where you are today. And me personally, we talk a little bit about responsibility. For me, truly, I do feel as though once I was made aware of what my family's past decisions were, that it was my responsibility to make sure moving forward that every single voice was heard and every single story was told. And that every name was listed. Everybody deserves a place at the table. And if we don't address where we were and the things that have happened in the past, then we'll never grow. And we can't change the past, but we can certainly make a difference in the future.
I completely agree. Thank you. Now, let me ask y'all this, and Christine, you can answer this first since I'm with you. What does this land represent to you today?
So, today, there's pride in this land. And there's pride because of the stories and the people that came from this land. And while there's still a level of shame that's associated with my family's part in enslavement, I could not be more grateful to some degree that things have happened because it brought me this extended part of my family. And you can't put a value or attach anything to that other than, like I said, I'm just beyond grateful. I love sitting here and sharing space with these two individuals as well as the rest of our extended family. We are made up of such an eclectic group of individuals with so many talents and strengths and wisdom. And I mean, I love coming to the events, and sometimes I just sit in awe and I just listen because I love hearing their stories. So it's, even with all the hurt and the pain of the past, what it represents to me now is a family and a hope for the future.
Absolutely. Love over everything.
Yes.
Miss Margaret, what does this land represent to you today?
It represents an opportunity for me to put forth every effort to educate our young people about what actually happened. And hopefully, the younger people will not grow up with the stigma that their parents grew up with. Hopefully, if we can get them out there and tell them our stories, they will be willing to continue telling our stories, because we've got to depend on these young people to learn about this land so that they can continue to tell our stories. If they don't tell them, our stories are going to die, because there is still very little written in the history books about African Americans. And we are a part of the American history, not Black history. We're a part of American history. And that seems to be kind of slipping away right now.
Well, we're going to go ahead and gain some traction right now and get things going back in the right direction. And you know, what's powerful is my daughter has a field trip. They're going to be coming here within the next week.
She must be in 4th grade then.
Yes. and it just hit close to home, obviously, because we're sitting here right now having this conversation. And my daughter's going to be here. I mean, this may be a part of history. I really appreciate y'all for coming here and doing this. Brother Wali, what does this land mean to you today?
That's a key question, and I really like getting to that question because it's so crucial. And one of the things I hear from people who find out that I was descended from a huge plantation like Brattonsville that is such a visible, attraction because it has the structure of the plantation that if you want to teach your child, to teach young people, it is fortunate that we have that here. So many people don't know what plantation they came from, and they don't have any remnants left that they can teach. And as Margaret stated, is that it is absolutely essential that we let them and inform them, let them know about the past, because history is so important. Because you don't know your history, you're condemned to repeat it. And one of the things that I have learned, since I've been involved here in my concern and been involved in working with my fellow descendants, is that our ancestors from the past who lived and died on the plantation, whatever desire, aspiration they had to look down through the generations. I can think of the number of times I've read about where there were certain, slaves from the past and said, I know I won't get a chance to go to school, never get a chance to read a book, because it was a crime to do it back in those times. That one day in the future, my great-great-grandchild or daughter or son will get that opportunity. And I feel that if the average African-American young person understood that they weren't not just themselves, you are a representative of your great-great-grandfather or grandmother who look down through the generation, and you are that person. When you realize that it is you will straighten yourself up is you find that instead of being an individual and concerned just about yourself and being so self-centered, you see your duty to them. You are that opportunity that they never got and never had the chance to read. So if you're in school, study hard and don't waste your time. And I find that when you can get this truth to young people, they'll be different. I didn't have that problem with my children because they knew that early on. There's a sense of duty and purpose. So when you live your life with purpose, there's nothing like a person who has a purpose rather than a selfish interest. That's a different type of individual when they're doing something that goes beyond themselves. That, of course, it means something to someone else, your great-grandmother, your child. No, that's what this plantation means to me. It means that I have this opportunity and we have this structure that we can bring them from Brattonsville. If you realize how many African American, how many black people who don't know what plantation, because there is no buildings or no structures or where their parents or their great-grandparents were enslaved. So that means so much to me. So that's what keeps me going. Nobody have to, to light a fire under me, say, Wali, go out there and do that. I owe this to Lila and her mother, whom I didn't know. So when I'm coming out here, I'm actually doing my duty for them who didn't get that opportunity. And I think if there were more and more young, particularly African Americans, understood that, we wouldn't have to work so hard to try to get them to be interested in their history. History is critical, it's crucial. And we grew up not knowing some basic things. When, not even knowing about the Rosenwald School, going to a Rosenwald School, and it wasn't taught to us. But that's how important it is. So it's critically important.
Powerful, Brother Wali. That is so powerful. Thank you, Mr. Cathcart.
Mm-hmm. Can I say one more thing?
100%, of course.
I can envision from this land and through the descendants, the black and white descendants, that our children are going to be a catalyst to spread the word to the world.
Yeah.
Amen. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm going to go back to Brother Wali, and then we'll circle back. If you could talk to your younger self, like before finding out about all this, what kind of advice would you give to yourself as a younger kid, or what would you say?
To myself?
Yes, sir.
That's interesting. Wow. Well, I would say, man, get up and learn all you can about grandmother's childhood and to its, research as much as you can. Every opportunity that you get, do not squander it. Take advantage of it. Oh, wow. And if I could just go back some of the time, I would have been looking for the graveyard. I would have been, finding ways, because there were people who were living during my time that I could have talked to, some that had direct knowledge. And I think I missed that opportunity. If I knew now, what you say, talking to yourself as a kid, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have been finding those people. I knew where they were. I would have been asking them questions. They could have told me direct information, because I got to see some of them. My grandparents was not the only one. There were people older than my grandfather that I remember who were ex-slaves, and I didn't know to talk to them then. If I would have told myself, get up off your butt and go visit Uncle Barry and Aunt Lucy, because that's what they call those elder people back then. They always aunt or Aunt, Uncle Barry or Uncle Lawson, and those were the ancient, those were our ancestors who had slave experience, could have told us a lot.
Thank you. Ms. Margaret?
He took the words out of my mouth.
I was about to say, I don't know how you going.
I don't know how to say that. I would have paid more attention. I would have listened to my elders.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would have sucked up as much information as I could.
All the wisdom and the knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say this. I think about some of my aunts, and I would have them on the witness stand. I think about their moms because, I said, you're going to tell me this, and what about grandmother this, and she was that. And no, they could have told me something. I think about now, I said, boy, I would be calling them to the witness stand. I would be cross-examining an attorney.
Oh, yeah. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, honestly, it's especially with as much family research as the three of us do at this table, that is anytime somebody comes up to our panel and asks, well, I'm looking to find out family history. How do I get started? Talk to the people still living.
Right.
So I really couldn't agree more there. A step past that, I would also tell my younger self that do it scared. Okay, don't stay away. And in fact, younger me, as in 2 weeks ago, me had to be reminded from Brother Wali, as a matter of fact, do not take for granted the amount of change you can bring about as just being one person. Something you think is insignificant can cause a tidal wave.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm with it. 100%. Okay, this is based to be directly to y'all too. So, did learning the history change how you see yourselves at all?
I don't know that it changed how I see myself, because I've always felt I was a person of moral fiber and somebody who believes in integrity and doing what's right. If anything, what it did, learning my connection and to the past, like I said, it called me to action. So, and made sure that, like I said, it called me to action to ensure that I stay true to my beliefs and my personal integrities and things like that. And that all ties back into, and I made this vow to Miss Margaret when I met her. I said, she said, well, now that we've met, I expect you to be around. And I said, yes, ma'am, I will be. I said, I will be around, I will show up, and I will put in the work because I believe in what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of where I'm at today with all of it.
Learning my history, ditto to what they have said, but in addition, I can look at my character, my traits, and I can see where I inherited some of those same things from my ancestors.
And what traits would those be specifically that you're speaking about?
Resilience.
Right.
Proud. I'm proud. I'm a very proud person.
You should be.
Willing to go an extra mile to make sure that the younger people are better off in their generation than I was in my generation.
If you don't mind me asking, for those audience members that may not have known, because I didn't find this out until about a couple weeks ago, when y'all were marching, y'all were put in the state penitentiary in Columbia, South Carolina?
Yes, one of the places.
Can you kind of elaborate on that? And what does that take you? Me mentioning that, what do you remember about that?
Oh, I remember it vividly. I remember being mug shot. They took our mug shots, and we were in a dormitory cell. There were, I don't remember how many. There were bunk beds. Maybe a dozen bunk beds in one compartment. And that's where we stayed for a week. We were fed by the other prisoners. During the day, the only thing we could do was climb up and look through the bars out on the lawn and just watch the other prisoners work or whatever they were doing. One thing I vividly remember about being a state penitentiary was that those women could cook. I enjoyed the food.
I was not expecting that. We keep it real, be honest, I was not expecting that. That's some good misdirection. You got me.
But we were there because we had been in several locations before we got to state penitentiary. We started out at the county jail.
Yes, ma'am.
They didn't have enough space. We were moved to the city jail, which was a little bigger, but they didn't have enough space. So they eventually took us to the armory, and we had our own little individual carts. So it was okay. We were there for almost a week, I think. And then we thought we were heading back to campus, but we were headed to Columbia to the state penitentiary because they would not allow us. They stopped allowing the NAACP to bail us out of jail. So they took us to the state penitentiary.
Thank you. So regarding the DNA confirmation between y'all, as far as confirming that y'all are related, what makes you family? You know what I mean? As far as in a lived and meaningful sense. If you could share some of the things that y'all do. And
So for me, family is so much more than DNA, you know, and in a lot of cases, it's so much more than it's the people you choose, right? Mm-hmm. But as I've said, you know, we do have DNA connections within this group, but we're so much more than just those DNA connections. We show up for each other. We support each other. There is an emotional safety within our group because we talk about some pretty intense topics and we work through them together to accomplish greater good and continue our mission, which is to promote that unity amongst us and to tell our story. And whether it's the good, the bad, or the ugly, we want to make sure that all sides are told. And so you have to have a level of trust with that. Mm-hmm. And we definitely have it. Our work is still ongoing because we do still see out in the community where folks do not connect us. Or they don't think that it's a possibility, whether that's negligence or they just stir in denial. We don't know, but I know Miss Margaret and I have a fun story. Most of us in the group, we run and we're involved in a lot of other pursuits within the community, right, outside of the descendants of Brattonsville. So sometimes those pursuits overlap, and Miss Margaret and I had not been in attendance at one of these events prior together, and several folks had said, "Hey, there's this woman, you have to meet her." And apparently she had kind of been getting the same thing on her side. "Oh, I got to introduce you to this young lady." And this lady, she was really proud of herself, and she brought us together, and she said, "I just got to introduce you to, I think you'd hit it off." And we just kind of looked at each other, and I looked at the lady who introduced us, and I said, "This is my family." And Ms. Margaret said, "Yeah, that's my cousin." And so thanks, we're acquainted. But that alone kind of spoke volumes, I think, about the fact that we still have a lot of work to do because people just could not even fathom the fact that we were connected, because she did. She kind of jumped back and was like, "What do you mean you're family?"
yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are probably in denial about it.
For sure.
Which that doesn't make sense. Like, it's 2026. Like,
I've even had people come up to the table when we're on property and stuff like that, and you know, they say it was sarcasm or in a joking fashion, but they've looked us straight in the face and as you know, black and white people sitting together and said, "Well, y'all shouldn't be sitting together."
How can y'all do
Hold
that?
on, when?
Yeah.
When was this?
Yeah, and they're like, this has been at different events here on property where we've had folks come up and say, "What do you mean? Like, you guys aren't supposed to be sitting together."
Yeah,
And it's like,
I probably shouldn't be present at that event. I mean, because if I hear somebody say that, I'll probably be like, you know, but it's all good.
well, we just say, "Well, why not?
Right.
Why? This is my family. Why wouldn't I sit with them?" You know,
Right.
and it's just about re-educating people.
Re-educating.
Yes.
That's what we're doing.
Race is an explosive issue today. Well, has been and still is, and people tiptoe around it. And we find that if we find out that if you be frank and honest with you, got a better chance of bridging those gaps. I like to relate what happened with the book Freedom on Trial by Scott Ferris, whose ancestors were part of the Klan movement. If you know anything about the history of this area of York County, it was a hotbed of Klan
York County was bad.
Reconstruction.
Yes.
And I didn't know that growing up, and when we studied, find more about it. So Scott came down here. He's from out west, wrote the book on Freedom on Trial, and he covered this area in the book. Everybody should get it because it's very comprehensive.
Yes.
I got a call from Allison Creek Church from Gregory. Said, Wali, Scott has been here. Scott Ferris is here. I think you'd like to meet him. So I just dropped what I was doing and drove up there and met him, of course, to talk to him and find out that this was a man whose ancestors were part of the beating up and killing of Jim Williams and beating of, what's the Reverend's name from Allison Creek?
Elias
Hill.
Hill.
And so he and I sit there and we let it off for just, for the better part of the day. And we have mutual respect. And I said that I cannot commend him more because you wrote truthfully and accurately. It didn't spare no punches, although
Right.
that was his ancestors who were doing the beating. So what this goes to show that enslaved, I said, now, here's someone on opposite ends of the spectrum. My ancestor Lila was enslaved here, forced to have children by the white Brattons. His ancestor was beating up a little invalid minister. But he saw where he could come together and write a book and do something positive in his time. And I'm trying to do something positive in my time about bringing back the memory of Lila and my ancestors and hoping that others would see and draw from that and do the same with theirs. Then if we did that, then the gap would not be as wide as just waiting and taking and saying that nothing can be done. Something can be done and something should be done. And those of us who come together and decide that, then we will, and as Margaret and both you both stated, that you find out that there is power in you and each one of us, and that we have that kind of ability and power. We have the power here at Brattonsville to influence those other plantations in Virginia and Charleston,
Yes.
South Carolina. And I've seen it because they look at, they're awed at us at Brattonsville. We're not as big as them.
Right.
But what does that tell you? That you are important, each one of us. Because sometimes when you say, wow, hey, I didn't realize, you get to realize that you're in a position that you can do something. And you're just as important. You may be more important than somebody with some big degrees and title ahead of their name.
That's right.
100%, Mr. Cathcart. What are some common misunderstandings that people may have given y'all's situation, y'all's connection? Like, does anyone ever come at you with like a misunderstanding that's kind of common? People might say certain things.
Let me give you an example. And most of the time when people say that we shouldn't be together, the average person would think it would be a white person saying that.
Yeah.
But that's not true.
True.
We have a descendant who lives in another state who called me, and she was very, very upset because we had come together with the white descendants. Very upset. And she wanted me to feed her the information for our next meeting so that she could be on. And I just had to cut her loose.
Not everybody's ready.
Not everybody's ready.
And we understand that.
Well, hopefully this conversation will change the direction and give people a little nice little nudge.
Yeah. And
know
I
what I
mean, we
mean?
just show them grace until something changes.
All right.
But we're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Okay. What is it that you hope that future generations learn from the story?
Well, not to repeat myself, but like I said, truly, until about 2 weeks ago, I had not even really thought about the amount of change that one single person can bring. And I know that sounds silly, right? But it's real. And Brother Wali helped me to understand that just a few weeks ago. It was like an epiphany moment. And if there's anything that I could stress to future generations, it's that you may be one voice and you may be small, but you're mighty. And you, like what Brother Wali said, you're important. And so don't ever not speak up because you don't think your voice matters. It does. You just might be the first person to say something that everybody else was afraid to.
Right. Miss Margaret, what do you hope that most children or the young people that hear this, what do you want them to take away from this?
That there are more similarities than there are differences in us, and that we should respect our differences and be resigned to work together as a group. Our kids now are growing up in an integrated situation. So I don't think it would take much for them, if they knew the history,
I totally agree.
to go out and change things.
It's what the parents are telling them. The indoctrinations, those seeds that they
Right.
plant.
Because most kids who are prejudiced, they weren't born that way. They were taught.
Yes, ma'am, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, respect and love, that's what it's about.
Respect each other's differences
Right.
and work together.
Work together. Brother Wali?
Well, one of my prime beliefs is most constant thing in life is change. How things are constantly changing. You're not 10 years old. You're a woman. You're a man. Life is changing, and we must never get locked and think that things goes because it was this way yesterday. It has to be that way tomorrow. Not necessarily so. And I love children. That's why I think teaching children is so important. And they have less baggage when you teach than the adults. I work at Carroll School doing a program called Learning History by Living It. All fifth graders have to come out there. And because of the ethnic and the racial differences, you have that in the school now. And some school districts are trying to bridge that gap. And so they have programs like that. And coming to Brattonsville, I have to give up my lunch hour sometime to answer questions from the kids because there's not enough time in the curriculum. We run out of time. So I go out there and sit down with them to entertain more questions. And I think I get more questions from the white kids than I do the African-American kids because questions such as, Mr. Cathcart, you mean when you didn't have white friends? You mean you had to walk to school? Why couldn't the bus pick you up? These are basic things that they as fifth graders don't know. To me, they should know that if their parents or somebody was teaching them in home. So not enough of that is being taught in the homes of the parents. I said, no, during my time, the whites went to white schools, and that's what segregation means, separation. Oh, my goodness, y'all had to walk all the way to school, and the white kids was riding the bus? I said, yes, that was huge. That happened. So that's why you were here. And they said, it must have been hard having to walk to school. I said, I guess it was. And then they said, was it cold? He said, was it hard? How could you do it? I said, how could you not do it? That was the existence of life. There was no heat in these buildings, one little heater. And when they see that, and you should see that, and when we get a chance to open the floor for questions, we never have enough time to entertain their questions because these are the kind of questions they ask, and they're comparing it. So the real problem is trying to get these adults educated. And when you talk about the prejudice and how they feel that they shouldn't be with this child or that child, And I think that what we're doing is so important. That's why never underestimate the value of yourself, because change comes mostly from the bottom up, not from the top down. I've learned that. So that means that you think that because you don't have some big position, you are less than significant. Not necessarily so.
You know what came to my mind was source orientation.
Yes.
Can you explain to the audience what your perspective is on source orientation?
Well, that's what I call what I do with the kids on the farm. I call it source orientation. When you come out to the farm, you learn the source, the plant, whatever it comes from that source. The earth is the source of everything, you know. And when a child learns that they can, you know, by getting the skills, they can go back to the source. When a child sees something in the store, but the store didn't come out the sky, somebody had to pluck it, work it, and put it in the store. And when that child understands what that source means, like the little boy came out there with his mother, I think he was about 4th or 5th grade. He saw my chicken with feet, and he was awed. Oh, my, the chicken got feet. I said, I hope they do. They walk on something. But that says something that chicken he saw was on the plate with no feet. But that's
right.
why they're reconnected to the source. And that's when you put a seed in the ground, that seed is complete. How many did you know that seed is complete no matter how small it is? That's whatever that is in DNA to be, it's going to come with. Even me, with my experience, there are some seeds that I don't even know the difference, particularly when it comes to the greens and cabbage. They look almost identical. But that put it in the right environment, then it will produce that. So that's what that child learned. I said, well, you don't have to create the seed. God created the seed. So you're the source. That's the source. And you're the highest form of life in this source. And when that child realizes that, then it strikes something inside of me. I am not made anything. It's already in that child to be there. You just tap it and try to nurture it and bring it forth. And so to respect somebody and, you know, not be envious of them. If a child has a talent or something, I wish I could sing like this person. You may not could sing like that person, but you can do something else that person don't do. So what does that say about God? Each one of you has something that is unique. So a person is unique. That's awesome. And so when children learn those kind of things, it's easy to get them to work when they understand the purpose behind it.
Thank you. Brother Wali, what does belonging mean to you?
What now?
What does belonging mean to you?
Well, I think that's a powerful word. And if you feel like you belong to something evolved, and I think that fits in with purpose. You belong. I belong here.
Yes, sir.
That's when we're talking about a race and people thinking they're better than somebody. I guess that word belong or purpose. No, they belong here just as well as you belong. And because, you know, when you go back and you listen to some of the things that you had to hear about your ancestors, they felt they had been conditioned as if they didn't belong or less of a human being, less than somebody else. You know, less or more. You're unique in God's creation. When everybody realized you're an exception.
Thank you so much. Miss Margaret, when you think about belonging, you know, how do you feel about that? Like, what do you think that means?
It means that I am a part of something.
Yes, ma'am.
I am a part of a group. I'm a part of a movement. I'm a part of something.
Christine?
For me, it's an ability to be unapologetically you and to be accepted unconditionally.
I love that.
Great way to put it.
That's what it's about. Yep. Okay. Well, y'all, that's pretty much it. Now, if you have anything that you would want to say to the audience, now y'all know we transcending generations with this. The kiddos coming to the field trip, they're getting knowledge. People gonna listen to this. People around y'all's age, all the way through. So if there's any final notes, final words that you would like to look into the camera and say, please do so.
Well, I'll go first. I would like to say to the younger generation that you should put forth an effort to learn your roots, to learn where you came from, to learn about your ancestors. Because knowing where you came from is going to give you a pathway to your future. Speak to your older people, hang around them, ask them questions, learn as much as you can about yourself and about your ancestors. And don't keep it to yourself. What you learn, pass it on to others. When you're grown and have children, make sure that they know what you know.
Thank you. Brother Wali or Christine, y'all have anything y'all would like to say to the audience?
Go first, Christine.
Well, I would just like to do a shameless plug and say that Historic Brattonsville has done an excellent job of telling stories. And as descendants, we continue to work with them to make sure all of those stories are told. And so there's a lot of different opportunities to come out and see us in action and see what we're doing. So please come out and visit us. We're usually here every Saturday during February. We're also present during Juneteenth. And we are also present by the sweat of our brow, which is the second Saturday in September. I like to refer to that one as the Descendant Super Bowl because that one's just a really important time for us. And a lot of us are usually here to help share those stories. So,
Thank you.
I would like to say to the younger generation is that don't underestimate the value and the importance of history. That is critically important because as the curriculum stands today, so much is omitted and not taught that would give you much more insight into who you are and where you came from and who others are. But when you get that opportunity and you have a place like Brattonsville where you can come that is visible, bring your young people out here and don't not be so closed about, say, slavery. That it's not just African American, that's American history. It's a part of what this country are from foundation. And its founders and the founding fathers were not perfect gods, but that was good. And when we talk about living up to the real principles, let's bring it and make it what it's supposed to be. And that's up to each and every one of you. And I say to you, study hard and don't underestimate the importance of history. So critically important. And you got things in your midst, and Brattonsville is one of the places that you're blessed. Many areas selves that wish they did have a Brattonsville, a plantation that they could come and study and learn from. So don't miss the opportunity. And as Margaret talked about, the elders in your community, the older people, sit down under them and listen to their stories, and they can tell you so much to help you. If I could go back in time, I certainly would have put them on the witness stand. So that's my advice.
yes. If I could just seek out the information and be the change.
There's a change on the horizon, and it starts within us. Y'all be good to each other and love each other and respect each other, please. We can do this. We got to do it together, though. Peace and love. This has been a Lyrical Miracle production.